Hello gazers, it's Dr. Lee here.
And I'm Dave from The Problematic Gaze.
Before you listen to this podcast, we just wanted to let you know about our socials. We are at Podcast Gaze on Instagram and at Problematic Gaze on TikTok.
Give us a follow where you'll find content relating to our chosen topic contained in this podcast.
And don't forget to follow us and do leave us a review. They really help to spread the word of The Problematic Gaze.
And please email us at theproblematicgaze@gmail.com if you have any thoughts on the podcast or you want to suggest future topics.
In the meantime, we hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to The Problematic Gaze with me, Dr. Lee Arnott.
And me, Dave Moor.
Each episode we take a piece of pop culture and examine it through the problematic lens to ask ourselves, is it problematic? If so, why? And what that says about society and culture then and now.
And before we take a deep dive into our chosen topic, we'll look at the news events of the day and the cultural landscape, just to put our chosen topic into context.
You all right, Dave?
I'm all right. How are you?
Very good. We are still together, dear listeners.
Still chained together.
Yeah. Like those Siamese twins you used to get who hate each other.
I know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where one of them's making love to their partner and the other one's listening to a podcast with their earpods in.
I'll leave you to imagine who's doing what.
Yeah. Or it's like a Samuel Beckett play where there's two characters are just kind of like bonded together and they just can't get away from each other.
No, bonded in mutual loathing.
Yeah.
Morning,
everyone.
No bubbles today, everybody, because it is the morning and we're not alcoholics.
No, we've got a cup of tea. No, we're not, actually. And actually, you've been up here for the weekend, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
And we've been very parsimonious. I mean, because it is the new year.
Yes.
We haven't caned it. We've just had tea before 10, as our dear friend Lucy champions, and had lots of sleep. Well, you haven't. You've had the night sweats, haven't you?
Yes, I have. Probably riddled with some disease, but never mind.
There's a lot going round at the moment.
There is, yeah.
We woke up to a lovely
winter wonderland.
Yeah, lovely winter wonderland outside, and obviously 3 hours later, it's rainy, it's slushy, it's miserable.
Yeah, it's all gone to shit.
So, okay, right.
To business.
To business.
What are we looking at today, Dave?
Well, we're going to be looking at a piece of British TV history from 1996 to 1997, but we're going to focus on 1997 specifically. Mm-hmm. And it is The Girlie Show. And it was presented by Sarah Kaywood and Sarah Cox, amongst other people. And it was a kind of like a magazine show, wasn't it? Championing Ladette culture.
Yes, late night magazine show. Very important to stress. It was a late night magazine show. It is on YouTube, the episode we've watched, isn't it?
It is. We'll post a link to it. Think Euro trash. It's all in that kind of similar vein.
Yes.
Channel 4, late night, Fridays.
Yeah. What's your relationship to The Girlie Show?
Well, I watched a couple of episodes at the time. I don't remember it setting my world on fire. And that's about it. It ran for 2 series, didn't it? Then kind of like sank without a trace.
Yeah. I was the same. It was on. And we did watch it because I was in a house with lots of girls at the time. But it wasn't particularly edifying or didn't rock my world like it didn't rock yours. Mm-hmm. But it's an interesting piece to look at, isn't it? Because it's a real snapshot of Ladette and therefore, by definition, lad culture of the mid-late 90s. So we thought it was worth a gaze, didn't we?
Absolutely. It is worth a gaze. And also, being two gay guys growing up in the 90s, we were neither lads nor were we ladettes.
No.
So I think we're kind of coming from a good vantage point of being able to kind of dip our toes in both cultures, aren't we?
Yes, back to Puff Island, darling.
Back to Puff Island, yes, bestriding the
like
the
a colossus.
Yes, like a giant colossus with our bits dangling in between.
Don't look up, everybody.
No. Take your eye out.
So should we have a look at what was happening in the world? Or what was happening in the UK in 1997 then?
Yes.
So does that mean we have to cross to the news desk?
Go on then, do it. I should put some little footsteps over it as well.
Do that.
Okay, so we'll edit that in. Footsteps.
Crossing over. And then...
Shuffling papers.
Would you like to start?
Okay, so this is from 1997. What was going on in the news world? Well, on the 17th of January, East 17 singer Brian Harvey is dismissed from the band after publicly commenting that the drug ecstasy is safe.
I think I remember that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Do you know, it's so weird. I can't get my head around that E17 was still a thing in 1997.
I know.
For some reason, I thought they were much earlier than
Well, they
that.
were. I remember them, like, 1992, 93, they kind of first started, so they've had a good run.
Yeah, and we were watching the Top of the Pops the other night from 96, and they were back in the charts, weren't they? Or 1997 it was. It was January 97 they were back in the charts, yeah.
Did you watch the boy band documentary that's been recently aired on BBC? It's on the iPlayer.
I saw the first episode. It was really good.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Brian Harvey's lost it, hasn't he?
Brian Harvey, bless him. I mean, if you want to talk about the trappings of fame and how fame can corrupt and...
Or just use you up and spit you out.
Yeah.
God.
We're like twins. What are identical twins?
So in sync, aren't we?
Yeah.
On the 14th of February, the Daily Mail does actually something good for once. It names and accuses the 5 young men of the murder of Stephen Lawrence on its front page. The day after the coroner's inquest finds the teenager had been unlawfully killed in an unprovoked racist attack by 5 white youths in April 93. I mean, that Stephen Lawrence thing was horrific, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Ugh, what a good-looking lad. All his features before him, 5 fucking idiots, you know.
Yeah.
Ugh, made me
and
sick.
it's, you know, his name does live on, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It's
it
made
does.
such a cultural impact,
Yeah.
you know. Okay, so on the 24th of February at the Brit Awards 1997, Geri Halliwell wears her iconic Union Jack dress. Do you remember that?
Oh my God, yes. I mean, full disclosure, I was obsessed with the Spice Girls. I thought they were fantastic.
I loved the Spice
Loved
Girls.
them. This is when they're at their most imperial, isn't it? You know, this year, at the end of this year, Spice World's going to come out. They've only been in the music since the year before, I think the summer the year before Wannabe's released. So they just go from nothing to world domination in 6 months is incredible. And this kind of seemed to be the icing on top of that. And of course, that was an icon. It was a tea towel.
Yeah.
A tea towel the sister made into a dress for her.
Yeah, they were great. They were fantastic. Did I tell you about the time I met Emma Bunton?
No.
Baby Spice. So I was sat in a pub in Hampstead, and my hubby kind of worked in that world and knew Emma Bunton from years ago, and she kind of came bounding over and said, "Oh, hi there," to my husband, and I was like, shitting hell, it's Emma Bunton. I was like, just play it cool, and then got introduced, say that this is David, this is Emma, and she said, "Oh, hi David, nice to meet you." I was like, "Oh yeah, hi, nice to meet you too." Inwardly, I was like, this is Baby Spice from the Spice Girls. Play it cool. But yeah, that was a moment, actually.
Aww.
Yeah, it was nice.
Speaking of the Spice Girls, they were the face of the new Channel 5, which launched on the 30th of March. They did all their promos for them. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Power of Five.
Yeah, the Power of 5, yeah. So this was Britain's fifth terrestrial television channel and the first new one since the launch of Channel 4 in November 1982. And we're still kind of in the infancy of Sky Television and satellite TV. So I think it's this year and the year after that Sky Sports gets the rights to the football, which really drives the build-up of satellite television. There's a general election on the 1st of May when the Labour Party under Tony Blair defeat the incumbent Conservative government under John Major in a landslide result, winning an all-time record for any party of 418 seats. It's funny looking at the news of this year because it did feel like this was a sea change because the Tories had been in power for nearly 20 years, 18 years they'd been in power. And I just remember waking up, finding out that Labour had won and just feeling so relieved because John Major's government had just got mired in scandal. They just seemed to be going nowhere. They lost their majority because their MPs kept resigning, a bit like what happened recently. Yeah. And then 2 days later...
Yes, on the 3rd of May, talk about double whammy, Katrina and the Waves win the Eurovision Song Contest held in Dublin with the song Love, Shine a Light,
Every Corner of a Heart.
Okay, copyright, let's stop there. The first time the UK has won the competition since 1981 with...
Bucks Fizz.
Let's rip our skirts off. Yeah. Now, it's funny you should say this because I also remember this being a kind of like a time of renewed optimism. The UK was riding high, wasn't it? There was
Cool
kind of like the
Britannia.
emergence of Britpop and Cool Britannia.
Yeah.
Do you remember when all the pop stars and the rock stars went to number 10 to meet Tony Blair? I'm not sure if that was this year or the next year, but there was a sense that Britain was riding high in the cultural stakes. Yeah, it's not so much now, but...
No, I wonder if I'm just trying to think if it's ever been that kind of positive and optimistic since. I can't think of another period when there's been this kind of great things keep happening one after the other.
Brexit.
Yeah, let's gloss over that one. The 27th of June, the publication of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone.
Yeah, we're not great fans of that.
No. It was a phenomena. It does situate this year at a particular place and time, I guess, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
And then...
Okay, so I remember this vividly.
I think everybody does who's around, don't they?
31st of August, reports emerge in the early hours of the morning that Diana, Princess of Wales, has been injured in a car crash in Paris, which has claimed the life of Dodi Fayed, the Harrods heir. Within 4 hours, it's confirmed that Diana had died in hospital as a result of her injuries. The United Kingdom and much of the rest of the world is plunged into widespread mourning.
Do you know, it's so weird. Even as you read that, I got little shivers up my spine just thinking about, because I remember it was a Sunday, I think.
Yeah, it was.
And I remember our house phone ringing, again, pre-mobiles, and nobody ever rang us early on a Sunday morning because we were 20-somethings. We were out on the lash on a Saturday night. You know, everybody we knew knew never to call us because they'd just get ignored. But for some reason, I heard the phone, went to answer, and it was my Auntie Lynn. And she went, Princess Diana's deed. I went, what? She went, put the telly on. And I couldn't believe it. And it was a shock, wasn't it? And I think even no matter what you thought of her, whether you liked her or not, it was still a huge kind of shocker.
It felt like a seismic shift, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah, absolutely. And to see the UK just going through this kind of universal mourning process, it was kind of a phenomenon, wasn't it? Not seen the likes of it before. And then there was the whole narrative of the Queen hasn't lowered the flag to half-mast yet over Buckingham Palace, and the sense that the royal family were kind of playing it all wrong. But then behind the scenes, how do you know? They're looking after two young lads who've just lost their mum, dealing with all that. It was... Yeah, it was seismic, that event.
But apart from that, good year.
Yeah, apart from that, good year.
Yeah. Let's have a look at what was on TV at the time. There are some notable debuts in 1997.
There's Driving School. Do you remember Maureen?
Maureen, yeah. She was the terrible driver. She hadn't got a single out of it, didn't she?
Yeah. She rode that wave, didn't she?
Yeah,
or
she
somebody
did.
helped her ride that wave and cashed in on it.
But again, this is the start of reality TV as we know it today, whereby normal people become celebrities. And there's another debut, which is Vets in Practice, which made stars of people like Truda Mostu. Yeah, I can't remember any of the other ones.
No.
But they did get careers. Truda. Some of them got tele-careers afterwards, and that followed a group of vets trained to be vets and stuff. So,
a personal favourite of mine, I'm Alan Partridge.
Yeah, I mean, this is the one where he's in the hotel, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, it's just... brilliant. It's so funny, isn't it? Was this Alan Partridge's first TV show? Because he was a Radio 4 creation, wasn't he?
Yeah, but he had Knowing Me, Knowing You on the radio, and then it transferred over to TV. Yeah. And then this is kind of, I'm Alan Partridge, charted this character's kind of fall from grace or fall from fame a little bit. It's like he's living in a travel tavern, wasn't he?
That's right. Oh my God, just so cringe.
So funny. The genius, I would say.
Yes, absolutely. Also that this year, Midsummer Murders begins, and that's still going, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not being funny, Dave, but I would never live in a village because somebody will get killed. In fact, in this very village, somebody was murdered, weren't they?
About 6 months after we moved into this village. Yeah. Lovely, kind of quaint village, very Midsummer Murders, very Agatha Christie kind of village. And then 6 months in, one of the local farmers got murdered.
Yeah. By his wife and her lover.
Oh, yeah. It was very horrible, very sordid. Yeah, let's gloss over that
Gloss over that.
Teletubbies, say uh-oh. Apparently, yeah. Someone was going on a wonderful LSD trip when they invented that, weren't they? But I mean, can you imagine just like inventing this little show,
That
and it makes you a millionaire.
Yeah, and becomes huge around the world, doesn't it, Teletubbies? And Brass Eye, the kind of satirical comedy show on the Channel 4 show, often controversial, also begins this year. What was the top TV shows of the year? Not a lot of surprises on this. The biggest TV show was The Funeral of Diana.
Of course. Yeah. And then the second was Heartbeat. Can you imagine that? Heartbeat, yeah. It's filmed all where I'm from, near Whitby. Yeah, beautiful part of the world, that.
Right. Third highest show was A Touch of Frost, David Jason. Never watched it.
No, never did.
No.
Both from Yorkshire, though. Heartbeat and Touch of Frost. Yeah. And then number 4, EastEnders.
Number 5.
Still riding high.
Number 5, Corrie.
Yeah. 6, Casualty.
Then number 7, Men Behaving Badly.
Which is rather apt for what we're about to discuss,
Yes,
isn't it?
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, the 2 laddish fellas that we've actually covered in one of our podcasts, actually,
Yes,
if you want to go back and listen to that.
Yeah. There's One Foot in the Grave Christmas Special. It's the 8th highest rated show of the year.
Number 9 is Before They Were Famous. I don't know what that was, really.
That was taking famous people then and showing their first kind of TV roles and stuff. And I think it was the first show which always had Martin Clunes' clip of him in his 1983 Doctor Who story in a ridiculous outfit.
Oh,
and
I
that
see,
often,
yeah.
Yeah, it was that kind of a show.
Yeah. And then number 10, it'll be All Right on the Night with Dennis Norden.
Yes, you were going to say Dennis Nielsen.
Well,
wasn't
yeah.
Dennis Nielsen.
Now, do you know what? I feel as though It'll Be All Right on the Night with Dennis Norden is what VHS was invented for, because you could fast forward for all his boring bits. I mean, he was... I mean, I'm sorry, I don't like to disparage people who passed away, but he was one of the most boring men on television.
Yeah, he really was. And then I remember You've Been Framed took the wind out of the sails of celebrity bloopers. And actually, again, like that whole reality TV thing, it's ordinary people making mistakes, falling over, doing pratfalls, which becomes the more popular. So it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
A little interesting switcheroo.
Yes. I mean, this was only, this is 28 years ago now, talking. I mean, you know, for all our ladies and gentlemen of a certain age, 1997 was 28 years ago.
Stop it. Stop it.
Fuck me.
Right, should we have a look at the top 40, Dave?
Let's do it.
Let's see what was in the charts. This is the week of the 2nd of March, 1997.
This was when our episode of The Girlie Show was transmitted this week.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're kind of looking at this chart. There's not really huge amounts jumping out at us. I mean, I don't know what we would do. We're probably in a drunken, drugged out stupor somewhere, weren't we?
Undoubtedly.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's some names. I mean, Armand Van Helden, LL Cool J, Mark Owen, Backstreet Boys, Texas at number 31.
Say What You Want. We're in sync again. Are you on your period?
Yeah, are you?
Yeah.
Oh my God, we've matched. Okay, top 30. She's a Star, James. I know that one. Two Become One, Spice Girls.
Oh, yes.
That has been number 1.
Fabulous.
Daft Punk are around.
With Daft Funk / music.
I'm sure we'd know it if we heard it.
I'm sure we would. Sound like
God.
2 old nanas, don't we?
Honestly. Ultimate Chaos, Casanova at 24. Not a clue. Erasure at number 23 was a song I've never heard.
Oh, Kathy Dennis is still going.
Yeah.
Waterloo Sunset, number 21, Kathy Dennis.
With a cover.
Yeah, with a cover.
That's so weird. Kathy Dennis, one of the most prolific songwriters and most successful songwriters, doing a cover.
Doing a cover. Yeah, it's cash grab.
Cash grab. Another cover, I Shot the Sheriff by Warren G. God, we're not doing very well, are we?
No.
Ready to Go, Republica.
Yeah.
Number 15.
Okay, classic. A lot of R&B in this chart.
There's a lot of R&B.
Babyface, Every Time I Close My Eyes at 13. Then Don't Let Go, On Vogue at number 12.
I used to like a bit of On Vogue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did. Never Gonna Get It.
A group of Never Gonna Get It, love.
Yeah.
Give me a group of 3 strong women, I'm all over it.
Mm-hmm.
Can't help myself.
I know.
Gaze like moths to a flame.
Yeah, it's like 3 degrees.
Yes. Exactly. That's the 3 degrees
TLC.
of the 90s, yeah. Mm-hmm. Should just name as many girl groups as we can. Banana. What was that? Who were those ones that did Mana? Let's not go there. Right, top 10.
Top
Come on,
10.
we're going to know some of these.
Okay, straight in at number 10. Remember Me, Blue Boy. Remember Me. Yeah, that was a good one.
That was a good one.
Show Me Love.
Robiness. Oh, I love that one. Oh, You Got the
Oh,
Love as
yes,
well.
it's warming up now in the top
Yeah.
10. You Got Me Love, Source featuring Candy Staton,
Yeah.
number 8. Oh, Where Do You Go, No Mercy, number 7. Natural, Peter Andre, number 6.
Don't know it. Alone, the Bee Gees, number 5.
Okay, Stop the Press.
Stop Press, number 4.
Number 4. Encore une fois.
Yeah.
Sash.
I love that song.
Tune.
Yeah.
Tune.
This is definitely the clubbing
That
days,
was
isn't
definitely
it?
kind of like
Yeah.
a coming up song, that wasn't it?
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, yeah, that bit when in the middle when it goes quiet and then kicks in again.
Yeah.
Oh, I could feel a gurn coming on almost.
Oh, God, thank God those days are behind us. Number 3, Don't You Love Me?
Eternal. Don't know it.
Yeah, one of their lesser known hits.
Yeah. Number 2, Hush, Cooler Shaker.
Yes, I had that
know it.
album.
Did you?
Yeah,
Did you?
I was thinking they were mega cool, but they weren't really that cool, to be honest.
Not really.
Cooler Shaker. But I had the album, it was good.
Shall we see what number 1 is?
Go on then. Okay, number 1.
Oh,
Don't Speak.
no doubt. That's a good one.
Yeah,
That's a
okay.
good one.
So that's very apt because I worked at the bank at the time. I remember when Princess Diana died.
Right.
I worked with this girl called Sam who was a bit Tourettesy. She kind of always said the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Right.
And when we did the minute silence for Diana, I mean, there was several minutes silence for Diana, wasn't there?
Yeah.
You know, on the Monday, they had a minute silence in the bank. So we were all there. And then
What happened?
halfway through the minute silence, Sam just went, "Don't speak."
God.
Everybody's like shoulders were shaking with laughter.
And she
then
wasn't wrong.
She wasn't wrong, but she just kind of it came out with it by accident. Couldn't help herself.
Bless her. Bless her. Right then, to the matter of the business, to the order of business, to
Yes.
the business of the day. All of the above.
Either of them three,
Yeah.
three would do. So, we've given a brief description of what the Girlie Show is. We don't really need to take a deep dive until we start talking about the episode that we watch, which was transmitted on the 2nd of March, 1997. So, why don't we talk very briefly about Laddism and Ladettism?
We have touched upon this in Men Behaving Badly, but just a little quick recap. Laddism is a response to the media construction of the new man, which becomes a thing in the 80s. And I don't know if you remember, Dave, that famous Athena poster of the topless guy holding a baby, which blew everyone's minds because it was the idea that a man could look after the baby as well. It seems astonishing now to think about it. And so there was this media construction of the new man, which really wasn't a reflection on the lives of most people. But the new lad, specifically when Loaded magazine becomes a thing in 1991, I think, the guy who creates Loaded creates it because he wants to get rid of that fake new man crap, he says, basically. And he wants that men can be men again because, again, there's this perception that the man is under threat, which seems to be a common recurring theme, and we see it today. And at one point in the mid-late 90s, there's a survey group done by an advertising agency. This is all advertising agencies creating this kind of ideas and stuff. And they were talking about how the man seems to be dying and that they need to re-embrace this masculinity and that they need to become heroes again. It's all bullshit. But as a consequence, the new lad becomes, like in Men Behaving Badly, it becomes a way that lads specifically can get drunk, behave appallingly.
Yes, the Ladette culture was saying that if men can do this, then women can too. They can be ballsy, they can be brassy, they can drink lots, they can go out partying, they can wear what they want, they can shag who they want. And that's basically it. But like, again, you say, this is just a way of advertisers and the media getting column inches, basically, and making money out of a new social concept, which, you know, the general public kind of seem to lap up, really, and attach themselves to. So it's all kind of smoke and mirrors, But it kind of seems to take off a little bit, this Ladette culture, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, most notably with people like Zoe Ball Sarah Cox was just kind of emerging at this point.
The Spice Girls.
The Spice Girls kind of adopted it as this, you know, we're free thinking, we're girl power, we can be anything we want, we can do anything we want, we're not going to let men dictate who we are. I mean, again, another kind of artifice, really, considering they were managed by men, the record industry was dominated by men, etc. So, but it kind of really seemed to take off in the national psyche, didn't it?
Yeah, but while it allows the tabloids to promote this idea of this is what's happening, but it allows the tabloids to have their cake and eat it, because in one issue they can show a picture of Zoe Ball with a low-cut dress on saying, yeah, she's a girl about town, but the same issue they can then slag off another woman for showing too much flesh. Yeah. So for them, it's a godsend, because it gives them permission, I guess, to show women in various states of undress, while at the same time doing their best to keep them in kept their place. So Ladettism, like Laddism, is very short-lived, really, isn't it? Certainly by 2002, 2003, it's pretty much gone as a little cultural lodestone.
It seems to me very cynical.
Yes.
It just seems to me like, you know, just a way to label the natural evolution of men and women. I mean, women were already going out. They were already dressing for themselves. They were already going out drinking. But look at the 80s. There didn't seem to be anything kind of like new about this, apart from, like you said, it was a pretty cynical ploy for the papers to create column inches, build up women and then bring women down again.
Yeah.
Was it ever thus?
Yes, exactly. No. Exactly. So this show purports to be a kind of emblem of this Ladette culture, doesn't it? I mean, should we talk through what happens in this show? It was mercifully 25 minutes long.
Oh my God. Okay. Can I just start by saying, I know we have to find positive points about the show.
Yeah.
But this show was an absolute crock of shit.
Yes, it was. It was just vacuous, wasn't it? It was just, I mean, if this was, I can imagine like first and second wave feminists just looking at this show and thinking, what the actual fuck? Yeah. How was this promoting the cause of women? And
well, we should talk about how it was kind of presented to the public, you know, press releases, you know, what was the aim of the show? What is it about? What does it represent?
Well, it was about, you know, women being able to do what they want. You know, I think one of the strap lines is the Girlie Show. Sarah Carwood says in the opening introduction, she says, where the girls know their place and want to invite the boys back to it. Ostensibly, this show is just the hosts being lads.
Yeah.
The content of it.
Yeah, it's like an item show. It's like a magazine show where, you know, there's various items laced throughout it. In front of a studio audience.
Mixed studio audience.
A mixed studio audience. Yeah. I must say, at this point, executive produced by a man.
Right.
Directed, out of the 12 episodes there were, only 3 of them were directed by a woman. Right. The rest directed by a man.
Right.
So very much a construct of this Ladette culture, but accentuating it. The presenters, Sarah Cox, her first TV job, and Sarah Kaywood and others, I felt were assuming characters that they'd been told to assume.
Yes.
I.e. boisterous, loud, laddish, in inverted commas, ballsy, but just like a hyper accentuated version of it. Yeah. They were playing characters to a certain extent, I found.
Yeah. The whole thing just felt very artificial and very unedifying.
Yeah.
It was... I mean, I thought the title sequence was quite interesting because they use the Charlie's Angels imagery, don't they?
Yeah.
And it's funny thinking because the Charlie's Angels film's been released in 2000, produced by Drew Barrymore. And it's interesting that Charlie's Angels at that time was held up as a kind of representation of strong women and feminism. When you watch Charlie's Angels, it's anything but. It's just an excuse to get the 3 women to get their clothes off, and they're still in control by a man. There's really very little feminism in that, as there really is in this. But I thought it was interesting that the titles and the logo of the show was recreating that logo of Charlie's Angels, which was an iconic. I used to have a T-shirt with that logo on.
Yeah.
Not the Girlie Show, Charlie's Angels.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about a few of the items that were in the show. Okay, so there was one particular item which was entitled Wankerette of the Week.
Yeah. Now, this was a usual that they usually had a thing called the Wanker of the Week, who was a guy who'd been in the news that particular week, and they would slag them off. But this one, they said they're making a special exception for a woman, and that's why they're calling it the wankerette of the week.
And who was that woman?
It was Patsy Kensit. And so what follows is Sarah Cox giving like a 2-minute
monologue.
Comedy monologue.
Yeah.
And I use that term very loosely, which was basically just slagging her off, wasn't it?
It was awful. It was punching down on Patsy Kensit. So basically, what they're saying is that Patsy Kensit was a failed actress who had a habit of marrying rock stars, of essentially being a gold digger.
Yeah.
Really punching down on another woman. I mean, I don't know what Patsy Kensit had done to deserve this savage beating.
Well, this is because she was now going out with Liam Gallagher. I think they got married, but it was criticising her acting, as you say, her looks. They talk about getting her lips done. I mean, oh God, there's a signifier. You know, somebody got their lips done. They got slagged off for it these days. You couldn't even tell who had their lips done or not. Yeah. At one point, Sarah says, "Your lips are just like your knees. They've never met." You know, and it's like, fuck hell.
What was the point of this?
Yeah, I don't know. Where's the sisterhoods?
Are they trying to say like the Ladette culture means you can slag off of women and get away with it? Is that what the message of this was?
Yeah, it was so odd. Yeah. And it was so nasty.
Yeah.
I was a bit taken aback by it.
I really was. And I just imagine if you're Patsy Kensit sat there at home watching this, what would you think?
Yeah.
It's like, what have I actually done? Am I some sort of witch? Am I some sort of social pariah or something? What, just for living my life the way I want to live it?
Exactly.
I mean, that was surely what the message of the whole show was. Live your life the way you want to live it.
Exactly.
Unless you don't meet our requirements of being what we believe a woman should be. I reckon scripted by a man as well.
I'm sure. I was just going to say, it's just slut shaming, isn't it, basically? Yeah. Slut shaming, appearance shaming. It was just ghastly. Really? When they introduced the wanker of the week, I noticed as well, they said, nice girls don't just say wanker, they do it as well. And it was like, yeah, that's really powerful, girls, because we wank too. You know, it was just like...
It's so cynical.
Oh, so cynical.
Okay, now, you know, obviously, Shirley, in our creative department, we apologise now because Shirley always says you need to find 3 positive things about it, even if you don't like it, but we're going to struggle, aren't we, on this occasion?
I challenge Shirley to watch this on YouTube. It's 25 minutes of your life and come back to us and with 3 positive things you could say about this show. I mean, the set's quite pretty. Yeah. You know, the set is so 90s.
It really is. 90s. It really is. And the production values are just really shit. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to another item, which was an interview with Patsy Palmer, who played, at this point, Bianca in EastEnders. Yeah. Now, if you hear that you're going to have Patsy Palmer on, who played Bianca in EastEnders, you could ask her things about what do you think maybe the cultural impact and the representation of women are in EastEnders? Or, you know, how do you feel the press treat soap actresses? It was the most dumbed down interview of anyone that I've ever seen. I mean, Sarah Cox, obviously. Now, I just think, let's just caveat all this. I'm not slagging Sarah Cox or Sarah Kaywood off. But, I mean, Sarah Cox has gone on to have really...
Yeah, it is now a really
broadcasting career.
Broadcast.
Yeah, really well-respected broadcaster. Yeah. But anyway, so back to this Sarah Cox interview with Patsy Palmer. Questions asked about, what's happening in EastEnders at the moment? And, are you an East End girl? Do you like pie and mash? Let's bring some pie and mash on, have a taste of pie and mash. Yeah. I thought what was quite interesting is that Sarah Cox kept saying to the audience, oh my God, she's just like Bianca, isn't she? And there's still that blurring of fictional characters and the actors who play them. Which I think actually the internet and social media has actually got rid of now. I think people are very able to see. It's like when villains of soaps used to get attacked in supermarkets and stuff because people thought they were genuinely the people on TV. So there's still a little echo of that in this interview. But God, it was just so turgid. That was it.
That was it.
Thanks, Patsy, for coming in.
Yeah, cheers.
Yeah. Yes. There was an item called He's the Greatest Dancer, which just kind of featured people dancing in a nightclub. What's
interesting about this, I remember this was one of our favourite parts of this show. He's the Greatest Dancer would have basically some footage of a guy who thought he was God's gift dancing and obviously just being a shit dancer. And this was one of the things that struck out at me because I remember this, and I remember this did really feel like a 2 fingers up at men. It was one of the few instances in this show which did really feel like it had something to say against the patriarchy, I guess. And it was about bringing men down a peg or two. But it stands out in this show because the rest of it just...
Yeah.
Then we have the Mile High Club, another particularly edifying segment, which is basically bring a woman on who's got very big hair that's been hairsprayed, and then put her in front of a wind machine. And if her hair manages to stay in place, then she wins the prize.
Yes.
And
which is a kind of hairspray.
yes. And that was it.
Yeah.
What message is this telling women? What again, it just smacks of men creating this, because like, what do girls like? Oh, they like makeup, they like hair, you know, they want to know how to keep their hair normal. It just seemed like,
Shit. Yeah. And then we moved to New York, where they'd obviously sent a camera crew and a presenter off on a jolly to New York for the Infidelity Hunter, or the Love Police, the Love Detectives, which is basically interviewing a woman who honey traps men, where wives and girlfriends are concerned that their man might be straying. So they hire a detective agency who send out a honey trap to entrap them to see if they are.
Yeah.
Which they did.
Yeah.
And then that was it.
Yeah. And the woman in it, you know, when she found out that her fiance had said to the honey trapper, oh, I'm single, blah, 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 then she broke off the engagement. Fair enough. And
yeah.
Okay, it's another way of saying men are shit, but it's not particularly exciting or interesting. And actually, if you think about that time, one of the things, do you remember there was that famous picture? It was like done in the style of a Roy Lichtenstein cartoon, which was like, all men are shit. I think there was a book called it as well. You know, it's riffing on that vibe, which was around at the time, but just inconsequential, you know. And then we get an interview with Samantha Fox.
Which I felt as though this was the saving grace of this episode. I want to find something positive about it. I'll tell you why.
Go on.
Because I felt Sam Fox, when she was being interviewed, wasn't playing into their game.
Yes. Yeah.
She, again, I felt Sam Fox came across as kind of like very articulate and very intelligent, like as she did in that page 3, our second episode of our podcast. We did an episode on page 3 girls, and Sam Fox from that came out in a really favourable light as well.
Yeah.
They were asking her about, well, Sam Fox immediately was very unapologetic about who she was and where she'd come from. She's not doing it now, but she would go back to it if the money and the timing was right and everything. So very unapologetic about that. And then Sarah Kaywood, who's interviewing her, gets her to talk about Melinda Messenger.
Who's another
up-and-coming page 3 girl, kind of the next generation from Sam Fox. Obviously kind of like feeding Sam Fox into wanting her to criticise Melinda Messenger by saying, well, she's well known to have had a boob job. What do you think about that? Expecting Sam Fox to come back and bite and say, oh, well, it's all fake, isn't it? It's not real and all this kind of thing. Sam Fox basically said, well, good luck to her. If she wants to do that, that's what's happening these days. Yeah. Go for your life kind of thing. Refusing to kind of punch down on another woman.
Yes. Yeah, and again, is this the ethos of this show, that you set women against each other, which is what they seem to be trying to do? And again, is that being directed by the guys who are producing this show, you know? And you're right, Sam Fox is really unapologetic. I thought she was fantastic. Yeah. And she's 27, 28 by this point, you know? I mean, Sam Fox has got a huge career by this point. She's enormous in other countries around the world.
Yeah, she's a Bollywood movie star.
Yeah, and apparently she was up for Dick Tracy.
Yeah, which I never knew about.
No, I never knew about. Yeah. And she says, I didn't get it because I wasn't bonking Warren Beatty like Madonna was. But she doesn't then go on to slag off Madonna. No. She's not.
She says, I think Madonna's great.
Yes, she does. Yeah, you're right. This was the one kind of saving grace. And I thought, Sam Fox came across really, really well. And then, she was articulate and...
She wasn't playing their game. To me, it felt as though she was experienced in this business, in show business. She was aware of the trappings and she didn't fall for any of them.
Yeah. And then she sings her new single, End of Show.
Let Me Be Free.
Let Me Be Free.
Which I thought was quite a bop, actually.
I thought it was quite a bop as well, but didn't even dent the charts. I don't know. I don't think it even charted. Oh. And that was the end of the show. I mean...
Thus, in conclusion...
It
was a bit shit. I don't think it did anything to celebrate women or the strength of women.
No.
I just think it did women a disservice.
Yeah.
I can understand why it only lasted for 2 seasons, then sank without a trace.
It's a bit like Ladettism in itself, allowing women to be a certain way, but then restricting that with the same hand. So yes, you can dress like this, you can do this, you can do what you want, but at the same time, we're going to slag you off and we're going to punch down on you for doing it.
Oh, it's left like a bit of an uneasy taste in my mouth.
Yeah, I mean, mercifully, 25 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you want to watch a girly show, I recommend Madonna's Girly Show World Tour from 1993.
I would absolutely agree with that 100%. Much more edifying. There's a lot more constructive things to say about womanhood,
Yes.
femininity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, than Wanker of the Week. Fuck off. So, next week, Dave, as we wash any trace of the Girly Show from our presence, what are we looking at?
Well, we're getting a bit sleazy next week.
Are we?
Yeah.
Lovely.
We're going to be looking at a film, a US film from 1980. It's a crime thriller written and directed by William Friedkin, who directed
The Exorcist and French Connection.
Yeah, very well respected
others.
director. And this film is called Cruising, and it starred Al Pacino and Karen Allen. And it's basically about a serial killer who's targeting gay men, particularly the men associated with the leather scene in the late 1970s New York. Very, very controversial at the time.
Yes, I've never seen it.
I've never seen it.
It's on YouTube, people, so if you want to watch it, please do. I'm quite looking forward to this, actually, because it'd be quite interesting to see. Why was it controversial? Because of the representations of gay men in
Yes, the representations of gay men, and particularly about the New York leather scene.
Kelsapries.
There were protests when they were filming it. Yeah, so let's see what it's all about, shall we?
Yeah. Let's get down and dirty next
Get down
week.
dirty, have a look at men in leathers. Well, nothing we ain't seen before.
We have to.
If we must.
So until then, please follow us on our socials at Podcast Gaze on Instagram and TikTok.
And if you want to email in, please do. Let us know your thoughts on any of our episodes, or if you want to suggest future topics. And please don't forget to leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you very much. So I'm off to get my leather chaps on.
And I'm going to dig my nipple clamps out.
Oh, honestly, you had to take it there, didn't you?
I did. So until then...
Until then.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.